Hello and welcome to Friday. It's Ivy Nation Sports Talk. Grinning Vince D'Addario, snarling Jesse Stiers. I'm Sean Stiers. Glad to have you with us. We've got a long way to go and a short time to get there on today's show.
Yes, we do. Apparently.
I don't know. What was that? Who threw that up on the screen?
I don't know. It's definitely not me.
Who's doing that?
I think Jesse is.
With great power comes great responsibility.
That's right,
Jesse.
That's right. Got a lot of stuff to get to today from Notre Dame football, some more draft talk after Pro Day yesterday. We've got some March Madness talk with Notre Dame women hosting tournament games this weekend. Caitlyn Clark was almost Irish at one point. We're going to talk about that. There's a story up at ESPN.com about that. I don't know how we're going to get to all this.
It had a lot of words in it.
Jesse, it did. I had to scan. I had to scan hard.
Thank you.
Look, I put it in the chat.
That article was not worth reading all of that just to find the one shot.
Notre Dame.
Yeah,
Control F Notre Dame. That's all you had to do.
Notre Dame stuff.
Brought you down about halfway. You read that section, you're done. That's all you had to do. It's the only part of that story that was any kind of interesting.
Yep. Already some upsets in. You always expect it in the men's tournaments, but don't see a lot in the first round of the women's tournament. I don't know if you saw today.
I did see. I've got a bracket going. I'm paying attention. My daughter's got a bracket going. She's like, Dad, Louisville was upset.
Yes.
She's like,
oh, are we ever mad when Louisville loses, though?
I know.
Only when it affects, my bracket.
Lost to an 11 seed, Middle Tennessee.
Yeah.
In the first round. There was much rejoicing in South Bend and around the nation. Notre Dame. But they lost by 2 points. They had a three-quarter. I don't know if you saw the last shot. Louisville inbounded from and shot. The girl chucked it up from about three-quarter court. It hit the back iron and the backboard. Bounced off. They would have won by 1 point had it gone in.
You hate to see it.
About 4 inches. Yeah.
I don't think you.
Then on the men's side, Florida Atlantic, who of course made that Cinderella run all the way to the Final Four last year, just got knocked off today in overtime by Northwestern. So
called that one. Although that wasn't much of an upset. That was an 8-9, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But they ended up beating them by 12, which it was kind of back and forth there for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then Northwestern pulled away in the second half. But look, there's been some good games. The games were good enough last night that I did stay up until they were over at 12:30. Yeah, I did.
And that Kansas game, unfortunately, I fell asleep. I have to admit. Well, I was trying.
I get it. Everybody else around me fell asleep.
Really?
But I stayed awake. Yes.
Man, you must have had insomnia or something last night.
I was enjoying basketball, Sean. I was enjoying it, man. I don't get much of an opportunity to sit back and just watch some sports. And so I took advantage of it because I missed everything in the afternoon because, of course, it was nuts at work. And so I never even had an opportunity. Like back in the day when I was a teacher, you throw it up on the projector, it's playing while you're teaching. Like that's great. Hey guys, if you're good, I'll keep the game up. Wink, wink, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't work out too well in this new gig. So I didn't see anything in the afternoon. So my only window to watch games was really like the after dinner window. And so I was in. And that Drake game was really good. They didn't pull it out like I needed them to, but that was a good game. And there's a lot of good ones last night. I was really enjoying myself.
As of right now, Vince and my wife are tied for 4th in our IB Nation Sports Talk bracket rankings. Jesse and I are tied for 42nd. So
yeah, baby. My son's got one in there somewhere. I think he's tied for 30th.
I think he's right there around us as well. The last I saw, he was right in my ballpark.
Yes. So. I think he's like the next group. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's fun. I got my daughters in the women's bracket with us. My son is in the men's bracket with us. So they got a lot at stake here, trying to beat Dad.
What the heck? My mom does have a bracket in here that's only missed 2 games, I guess.
I don't know what to tell you.
Going through it right now.
Hey,
yeah. More basketball in a little bit. Let's get to some football.
How it goes,
Let's get to some football and get everybody stirred up and riled up and interested. Of course, we had Notre Dame Pro Day yesterday, so a little bit more, sort of draft-related type talk. We're going to talk about a few different guys from who are all at Pro Day yesterday. Cam Hart really didn't do anything but weigh in yesterday.
Right.
The Colts reporters that I was talking to, he was on their list of guys that they were really interested in seeing. They were really hoping he would run another 40 time, but he ran a 4.4 something, at the combine. Why would you bother running another 40 time?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing with Cam is like he can't go back in time and change his injuries. Like that's the only thing that could help his stock at this point, not really testing or doing anything else.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
He's good. Go ahead and weigh in, brother.
Yeah. So my question to you guys as we start this thing off today, and by the way, for the live watchers, if you would, smash the like button. Hit it hard. Who gets drafted first? Cam Hart or Audric Estime after his big day yesterday in his mulligan of a 40-yard dash?
I think Audric will get drafted first. I think that Cam Hart should be drafted first because I think Cam is going to stick around a little bit longer. I think he's going to surprise some people. Well, not anybody around here because everybody here is smart and in the chat, but I think he's going to surprise some national people because his measurables are absolutely excellent for a corner. The only thing holding him back is obviously the injury history and the medicals and all that stuff. And so I think he's going to be just fine on the medical front. I think he's going to be in the NFL for a long time. And he's going to be a starting corner for a long time. And I'm not saying that Audric isn't going to be, but just the shelf life of running back is just shorter.
You just don't know. Yeah.
I personally would take Cam Hart higher than Audric.
But you think Audric is going to go higher?
But I think Audric's going to go higher. Okay. Yes. I think his 40 time kind of cemented that for me.
I agree with a lot of what Vince is saying, but I think that the reason why Audric Estime would go over Cam Hart is I just think the cornerback position group has more talent and is deeper comparatively to the running back group in this year's draft. I think that there is not a lot of great running backs in this draft. And so I think Audric is kind of a bigger fish in a smaller pond, while Cam Hart is a smaller fish in a bigger pond. I just think there's more cornerback talent in this draft class comparatively than running back draft talent. And I agree with Vince. I think that Cam Hart is someone who can have an immediate impact, but I also think Audric is too, based off of the team that he goes to. And if you would have asked me this a week ago, I probably would have said Cam Hart would go higher. But like Vince said, Audric's revamped 40 time really helped him out and bumped him up at least a round or two, in my opinion.
I think so as well. Because if you look at the projections that both of these guys had before yesterday, they're basically the same projections because no one's, flipping out new mock drafts because Notre Dame had a pro day yesterday.
Right.
Like Estime was mocked more like 4th, 5th round with a handful of thirds, whereas Hart was mocked 3rd and 4th, with maybe a trickle of the lower round. Hadn't really seen anything on the 2nd round. And I just, Jesse and I talked about this yesterday with the specific NFL eyes who were there yesterday. It just really seems like Audric boosting himself with just that 0.2 of a second, running that 4.58 instead of the 4.7 like that. I think it really opened some eyes, and then them all, guys who were there being able to watch, some of his position workout as well, seeing the agility that he has and some of that. Then all you got to do is pop in the tape. All these draft experts are always going to have their own opinions on, who they think is a good pass blocker, who they, don't think is a good pass blocker. I don't know how you watch Audric Estime's film and think he's a bad pass blocker, but I've seen that, grade, written up about him on the old internet. So I think that Estime really boosted his stock with that 4.5. And I just think, I keep looking and it scares me seeing the Washington Commanders with those 2 high 2nd round picks and the fact that Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury were there yesterday really kind of scares me. But it also, like for Audric Estime, that's obviously good, but like the one thing that we didn't talk about yesterday, Jess, Cam Hart also profiles to what Dan Quinn wants in a corner, with that long frame and more physical and all that kind of stuff. He really profiles to a Dan, but again, Dan Quinn showed up yesterday, didn't get really to see any of Cam Hart, but, he could have been there hoping to see a little bit of him as well, I guess. But Hart does profile to the Commanders. But again, because of the depth of the corner position, I don't see Hart, as a potential in that second round. But because of sort of the the lack of true stars in that running back group, I think it's really kind of, your flavor of choice in terms of what specific NFL teams want in a running back. So I think that helps Audric Estime potentially too. By the way, Jess, I don't know if you saw on the YouTube comments yesterday, but your old buddy Brent throwing shade at you in the YouTube comments, asking if you think that Audric would look good in a 49ers uniform.
I do not. I hope that is not what happens.
That really stings, I think, to hear Brent say that. But we all know he's a 49ers fan. So, all right, I've got some Joe Alt audio, and I figured this is a little bit more extended. I thought we'd hear. It's not like long, but it's a couple minutes long here. Some of the questions and answers that Joe Alt got from after his pro day workout yesterday at the Irish Athletic Center, and then we'll talk a little bit about it afterwards. So here is Mr. Alt.
One thing you think you proved today?
I think for me is just, I'm versatile. I can work both sides and just, continue to work hard and kind of show that today that, get better from the combine, just continue to make little steps every day, something that I wanted to prove.
So you have a conversation with Chris Morgan of the Bears for a while there. What kind of was that about it? And what follow-up meetings or what do you have in store with the Bears?
Yeah, I was just talking with him. It's just continue to be who I am and continue to keep what's important to me important. Working hard, continue to keep my head down and know that, if you're not getting better every day, you're getting worse, and that's something that I've taken to heart and just continue to work on.
What's the best thing an NFL team is going to get from you from day one?
I think for me it's my work ethic. I think that's something I really stand myself on, that I'll be the hardest worker or try to be the hardest worker on the field, and I'll work anyone both on and off the field, and I think that's something that I've always taken a lot of pride in.
Do you feel like your stock improved from the combine to now?
I think for me it's just continue to show, like what I said, my hard work, just continue from the combine to now, just little steps of improvement. So it's something I want to show, and I think I did that today.
Who impressed you today?
I think just me and Blake going on and doing that together, I think it's always a blast to work with him. I think he continues to work with a very similar work ethic, and he works his butt off, and it's just fun to be out there with him.
Joe, what are the specific aspects you would like to improve in your technique?
Yeah, I think for me it's always my strike and pass, bro. I think that's something that can really, end a defensive guy's rushes. I think if you throw a good strike, you can really mess with their mind and how they're rushing you. And then the wrong game is always continue to work to be lower and being able to roll my hips and explode through.
What would appeal to you about the Bears?
For me, I think being here in South Bend, obviously very close. Grew up in Minnesota, always NFC North, seen a lot of games. So I think obviously that's very important. And being close to home, like I said, is something that's awesome. And then just their tradition of football and that the Bears is something that's important to me.
Notre Dame's put a ton of offensive line talent in the NFL. Have you been in contact with any of those guys?
Yeah, I think last year was a big year for us. We had a lot of guys come back and kind of come through during spring ball, during the summer, and just being able to meet them and pick their brain and see what they have to offer has been really important to me and helped me a lot in my game.
How are you preparing for one-on-one interviews?
Yeah, for me, it's obviously work on the board, board work, making sure I'm, spot on with the stuff. If I'm going somewhere, making sure I look at their playbook a little bit and look at their plays. If it's, my stuff, making sure I know all our plays, our names and stuff like that. And then also just kind of, making sure I keep the small things important, talk slow, eye contact, body gestures and stuff like that is important.
Joe, it seemed like you were getting thrown different drills that maybe you haven't done before. How important do you think it is to show that you can sort of learn on the fly and do what they're asking of you?
Yeah, I think it's very important. I think for me also being able to flip, left to right. Some teams want me at left, some teams want me at right. So just being able to show that versatility and making sure I can work both sides and, just listen to directions and follow what they're asking and try to do the best of my abilities is very important.
What's your reaction when somebody mentions a mock draft to you? What do you think when you hear those?
I try to turn all that out. For me, like I said, I like to work with my head down. Today's one day, work as hard as I can tomorrow, and all that stuff will work out when we get there. I just got to continue to improve day in and day out.
All right, thanks, Joe.
Man, I tell you what, Joe Alt could give Vince Vaughn a run for his money in terms of words per minute. He really
and it's all the jargon. It's all
I know.
It's all the jargon that these coaches probably want. They just salivate for.
That's what struck me. Like for an offensive lineman, there's a lot. It's like very like Hartman quarterback-esque type stuff that he's spitting back at him.
You can tell that he is a smart kid.
Yeah.
Because he's very well spoken. He says all the things that people want to hear. Yeah, pretty.
Tell you what,
stuff.
those Bears guys, man, there was like a handful of Bears guys there, and you could hear them asking the questions there. I think that they're infatuated with Joe Alt.
How could they not be?
I mean, I don't blame them. I don't blame them.
Yeah, man.
But you heard there, the Bears obviously have the number 1 pick. They also have the number 9 pick in the draft. Alt is projected by most to go number 7 to Tennessee, which obviously is 2 picks ahead of the Bears. So my question is, okay, Bears are presumably taking Caleb Williams at number 1, and we haven't even talked about the fact, that Keenan Allen and all those guys went out to Caleb Williams' pro day,
of course,
the other day. But I forgot about that. But if you're the Bears, are you making the move to get Alt? Like, would you be willing to, trade up potentially, try to leapfrog ahead of the Titans at number 7?
Go ahead, Jesse.
Yeah, I do. I said yesterday that Joe Alt is, in my opinion, the best and most safe overall pick in the top 10 of the NFL draft. And I think the most important position, outside of quarterback is the offensive tackle. And so if you're the Bears and you can lock up 2 of the best or most coveted positions in a single draft, and not only, these are top tier guys. Like, you could say Joe Alt is the best tackle, best offensive lineman in his class. And you could say Caleb Williams is the best quarterback in his class. So why not start those 2 kind of on their journey together throughout the NFL? And so if you have to do something to trade up, 2 picks with Tennessee, the Bears have a plethora of picks. Like, you can move around 7 for 9 and then and throw in like a 2nd round pick in there as well. If you're the Bears, I like the idea of it, just because, again, I think if you're going to start fresh with a new quarterback, why not, have the best tackle there is too? Let these guys kind of go through the process together.
I mean, look, it's 100% yes. If you have the opportunity, and I can't believe I'm going to use these words, if you have the opportunity to get the number 1 quarterback and the number 1 offensive tackle, you do it. I mean, rare is it that you're going to have 2 picks in the top 10, right? And so back before they traded Justin Fields, I said the ideal draft for me would be to keep Justin Fields. You draft, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Joe Alt, and you roll. Like that. That's what I wanted to see happen.
Sure.
Obviously, that's not going to happen. So next best thing is you go get the best offensive tackle. Make it happen. I would absolutely do that, because the offensive line has been terrible for the Bears. It just has been, whether it's been injury or just bad selections or whatever. It's been bad. This is a cornerstone that can play for you for years and years to come.
The Bears have a woeful history when it comes to drafting offensive linemen. It's been like one guy, I think, in the last 20 plus years that they have, offensive line overall that they have drafted in the first round. And if you're trying to reset your foundation, they've already made some nice offseason moves. Keenan Allen, who I talked about, making that trade with the Chargers to get him, so like they've got him, they've got DJ Moore, so they've got receivers right now. Now, granted, Keenan Allen is a little bit older, but that's a really good veteran to add, especially if you're going to have a young quarterback out there. And if you're going to have a franchise young quarterback out there, you have got to protect him. And I would be doing everything that I can if I'm the Bears to try to move ahead of Tennessee, move up a couple of spots, everything minus trading that number 1 overall pick, probably, assuming that, they want the quarterback to go there.
Because look, here's the thing. They didn't do everything they could to protect Justin Fields.
Right.
And so,
because again, they don't draft offensive linemen in the first round, and you've got a chance to get a guy, like Jesse, we were talking about Joe Alt yesterday. I think that Alt is the most sure thing Notre Dame player in the draft since Quentin Nelson, basically. And Quentin Nelson obviously is one of the best offensive linemen in all of the NFL since he's been in the NFL for the last 7 going on 8 years or something like that at this point. And I think Joe Alt has a chance to be every bit as much of that. And if you're going to get the big investment with the quarterback, you've got to protect him. And that's Joe Alt in terms of this draft for me.
100%. You got to go with the surefire thing. The Bears you can't just get this, what they think is a jewel of a quarterback, and then just not protect them. They did that already, and it didn't work. and you traded him away.
Yeah.
So now you're trying to do this again. Learn from your mistakes. Like that would be paramount for me. Learn from your mistakes, boys. Come on now.
Concur. So you also heard Joe Alt talk about some teams want him on the left side, some teams want him on the right side. Curious what you guys think about that someone might potentially be thinking of flipping Joe Alt over to the right side instead of the left.
Whatever. Like, I don't care. He's going to be amazing at whatever you have him do, whether it's right or left. I realize that left is the sexy side, to be on its quarterback's blind side and all that stuff.
Unless you got a left-handed quarterback.
Right. Exactly. So, I don't care. As long as he's in a Bears uniform, that's all I care about. Right or left, doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't think that – I think he's got the talent to play both sides, and I think that can be, attributed to him. I think he's got the talent, and I think he's got the technique, and I think he's got the smartness to play both sides. So when you talk about the versatility, I only see that as a plus, right? Like maybe he does start off on the left side, and then someone else on the right gets hurt. Like you never know what's going to happen type situation. So I don't think it's ever a bad thing to know, multiple positions. And like Vince said, it's wherever he's at, he's going to dominate and he's going to have a very good NFL career. Vince, I have to know though, if he goes to the Bears, are you grabbing a Joe Alt uniform?
Ooh, I'm not really a uniform guy. But if I was going to, he would be the one I would get. Okay. Yes. I would rock an offensive lineman jersey. 100%.
I feel like that's the Bears thing to do regardless.
Well, that's fair too.
And that's the thing to me with Alt too, is like he seems like the perfect kind of guy to be a Chicago Bear.
Yes. Gritty, tough, restore some of that what the Bears want to be in their identity.
And then trade for Quentin Nelson and call it a day.
That's right. And I agree with what you guys are saying. It's like some guys get moved from one side to the other. If they don't think that he's quite there as a left tackle, move him to the right. Now there is, the one thing is you talk to offensive linemen, it's essentially you've got to kind of retrain your body in terms of that drop and, your footwork and your steps and all that kind of stuff. So it's not as simple as it seems, but at the same time, with an off season to work on it, like if they draft him and decide that's what they want to do, I don't think it would be, it's not like you'd just be throwing him right into the fire. He'd have the whole off season training camp and the whole thing, preseason games to get ready for it.
And he's got plenty of time. I mean, they have OTAs and they got all this different stuff where he can work on all that. And you can work on all that without being at practice too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just so happens that there's a NFL lineman just a call away that could probably help him out.
Those Bears guys, man, I was telling Jesse this yesterday, those Bears reporters, they were ticked off that Marcus Freeman was not going to be doing a press conference, to answer questions about, the players.
Really?
Yeah, they wanted to talk to Marcus Freeman, apparently.
Why? What's he going to tell you? It's not like he's going to be like, well.
They wanted to hear it from the big dog,
Beware of this guy.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
He's not going to say anything bad. Exactly.
Everything that he's going to say is going to be positive reinforcement.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Probably a little bit exaggerated as well.
You're probably right about that.
If we're being honest.
Exactly.
You're right about that. So another guy who worked out yesterday, Marist Liufau, the former Irish linebacker, and just a few comments from him. Not quite as many as we had from Joe Alt. Few comments from Marist.
Today's NFL, hybrid linebackers really taking over. A lot of teams are looking for great coverage, which you do well. But what is it that you think you've got that really sets you apart from the linebackers?
Yeah, I feel like I'm very versatile as a linebacker. Like you said, being able to cover, being able to be off the ball, get guys lined up, being a vocal leader out there, and also being able to rush off the edge or in the A gap, B gap, wherever coach needs me.
Between the Senior Bowl and then the Combine and then today, do you feel like you've proven everything that you need to prove, I guess?
Yeah, and everything that I took part of in so far, I feel like I proved my ability, proved that I'm one of the best out here, and that I can compete at the next level.
What kind of feedback are you getting right now?
I feel like a lot of the teams are saying that they like my versatility. They like the way I move as a player on the field, my motor, and just the general way I play the game. Yeah.
Multiple talk about the versatility of Marist. So what do you guys think about that? How versatile is Marist Liufau?
I think, Marist Liufau is selling himself in the best way possible.
You got to, right? Just like
Right.
if Marcus Freeman was standing up there, he'd be saying 100%. The same thing, I'm sure.
Yeah. And so versatility, you notice he talked about versatility and, rushing off the edge, covering in space, basically filling the A and B gap on blitzes. But there wasn't a lot of versatility talk about, his overall diagnostics of the run game. And why would you, if you're Marist Liufau, why would you bring attention to something that isn't necessarily your strong suit? But I do think that, his versatility will go a long way in the NFL. And, he can be in different packages and accomplish different things. He can be in a package as a pass covering linebacker. He can be in a different package as someone who is, a rusher off the edge or being stunted, up the middle off a different pressure. He has versatility. It's just his versatility doesn't exist in the run game. And so he's going to be a very package-specific player in the NFL. But, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I still don't think that there is still time for Marist Liufau to learn kind of the overall, how to be better in the run game, essentially. And being in the NFL and being in a scheme that probably fits his skills better, he might naturally get better at those things. But I love his commitment to kind of talking about obviously what he's really good at. And that's just being an athlete on the field and moving in air, moving in space really well, and whether or not that be coverage or blitzing.
So, when you're trying to sell yourself, obviously you want to highlight the good stuff and you don't want to necessarily shine a light on the bad stuff, right? He needs
to when you go to the job interview and they ask you what your weakness is. Oh, I care too much. I just care too much.
Yeah, right. I'm too loyal. I'm too loyal.
I work too many hours.
Yeah, exactly. My work-home life balance isn't great with the work side. No, I think that he needs to obviously focus on, his testing numbers are going to be really good. His versatility. Yeah, you can put together a little highlight tape of him being on the outside, being on the inside, and, just kind of being all over the place, rushing the passer, on the line of scrimmage, things like that. I think highlighting versatility is a very, very good way of going about it for him, because when you turn on an entire game, if it's not the NC State game, then you're going to see some flaws and you're going to see some diagnostic issues and things like that. So he's highlighting the good stuff, which is exactly what you want to do.
And I still wonder, because you're right, like he is a really good athlete. I mean, we've seen that. And the fact that he is so good in pass coverage, I think shows that, that he is a good athlete. But it's the specific, he's going to be a will linebacker as opposed to a Mike linebacker, so he's going to be off. But there's still just the matter of, how quickly he's able to diagnose some of that stuff. But the other side of that, and, like Jess, again, you having played the position, and you can kind of speak to this a little bit, because the game has become so much more pass oriented, it just feels like there's a better in for him now. And as you said, like that is something that he can still continue to work on, because he has incrementally gotten better over the last couple of years at that. But that is still kind of the area that he needs to kind of patch those holes, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, 10 years ago, I don't think he would stand nearly the chance that he does at making it to the NFL now. But, that's probably the Patrick Mahomes effect of, these spread out offenses, getting the ball out quickly. Marist does well in those situations. And I think another thing that he highlighted in terms of versatility is he's still a smart linebacker. He's still a smart player. He knows how to get lined up. He knows how to, what the overall objective of the defense is. And that's not hard. Playing in Al Golden's defense is not an easy thing to do. And we talked about why that would be beneficial for someone like Bertrand. I think the same goes for Marist. He can pick up on schemes and other things probably a little bit quicker than some of his other counterparts in training camp. So I think that's going to get him more opportunities as well. And just being in the right spot, right? Like he's going to get to the right spot, whether, he wraps up and tackles how he's supposed to. And that's, a different story. But I feel like a lot of that is more teachable, and he has more of the intangibles than he does the stuff that, he still needs to be taught a little bit more.
No, I think that's actually an excellent point, because we were talking about that with the Caleb Williams impact of Al Golden's defense. Remember last week that comment from Dan Orlovsky that we were talking about, like, you don't love the film watching Caleb Williams face Al Golden's Notre Dame defense last year, but because of the fact that it has, NFL intricacies in there, but that is only going to help Marist Liufau, JD Bertrand, virtually, especially the skill position guys, I think on Notre Dame's defense, virtually anyone who plays in that defense at Notre Dame. I think that as they get prepared to go to the NFL going forward, they're going to have a huge leg up because they're already ahead of the game in some of that stuff. Whereas other guys, borderline linebackers, whoever it might be, like that might be something that really trips them up in training camp and, mini camps and all that kind of stuff. So that could be a huge benefit for a guy like Marist Liufau.
Oh yeah, 100%. I agree with that completely. And they're going to have a little bit of a leg up going into this process, because they're going to be able to speak to, defensive minded things and that the NFL wants to do and, scheme and all of that. And that's huge. It's one less thing that they're going to have to learn when they get to the next level.
So shifting gears a little bit, Notre Dame men's basketball had a couple guys enter the transfer portal yesterday. Former walk-on Alex Wade, who earned a scholarship. He was given a scholarship this year, as well as Matt Zona, both in the portal. And I saw Tom Noyes saying Tony Sanders could be headed there, but as of right now, I haven't seen him actually enter the portal. So let's stick with these two guys right now, Wade and Zona. Big deal, little deal for the Irish.
It is I thought you were going to say, them leaving is blank, and it's great. It is time to chop off the fat, baby. There's a reason why guys are leaving as soon as the season ends.
Let them upgrade the roster going forward.
Yeah. They know what's coming, and they know kind of. Listen, Shrewsbury is. We've talked about establishing the culture, establishing how they want to play, etc. Like he's also establishing the type of player profile that he wants going forward, and those guys, clearly don't fit. And so it's a natural process. When a new coach comes, you get kind of stuck with maybe a couple guys on the roster a year, and then the roster turns over. You get rid of a couple more guys. The roster turns over. You get rid of a couple more guys, and now you have a roster full of people you fully picked, you fully recruited, etc. And so when we're talking about the long term of this team, the implications that it has, I don't see any impact. I actually see them getting better because that frees up roster spots for players that are more of Shrewsbury's profile.
Yeah. Well, look, it's obvious that Micah Shrewsbury respected those guys. I mean, there was a video out there when he made Matt Zona captain, towards the end of the season. And I believe he said a lot of nice things about Tony Sanders as well. I mean, they stuck around. You know what I mean? Like they didn't have to stay when they did. They stuck around and they did what they needed to do. And they got respect from Coach Shrewsbury. And, he didn't have to make Matt Zona a captain. Matt Zona hardly played. Like he did not have to make him a captain. And I realize it's not the same context, but remember in that press conference where he said, look, if you're not going to be here, we'll help you leave. Right. And that was more of a like, hey, if you're not going to do what I tell you to do, get the hell out and we'll help you leave. But the point that I'm making is he's helping those guys. Look, hey, Matt Zona was a captain at Notre Dame. He's going to be a great leader for you because coaches talk to coaches, you know what I mean? When they're recruiting and all of that kind of stuff, out of the transfer portal and all that. He's obviously going to say great things about Tony Sanders, Matt Zona, the walk-on kid. Like he's going to say great things about them. He's going to try to get them the best golden parachute that he can find. But the bottom line is they need those 3 roster spots. And again, I'm jumping the gun with Tony Sanders, obviously. If he happens to go, they need all 3 of those roster spots. They need the 2 that they're going to get from the 2 guys that have already declared. And it was 100% expected, I would say. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe a guy or 2 that he brought in last year may, shuffle off to greener pastures. You know what I mean? So I'm sure
you never know with
taking
the portal.
place.
Yeah. That's right. And we know that he's got to continue to build this roster. These guys, they did stay. They helped in this transition year. They both obviously feel like there's probably some conversations going on as well. Like with Zona, it's the COVID 5th year, basically. Right. So he did his 4 years. He's got his degree, all that kind of stuff. These are both guys who are going to have to transfer down a level if they want to go get meaningful minutes someplace, whether it's the MAC or the Metro or whatever it happens to be. They can they can both go play at a smaller school, but
absolutely
for what Micah Shrewsbury is building here, it's just not part of the cards. But again, they did what they were asked to do when they were here, and in Wade's case, again, like he's a former walk-on who got a scholarship.
Well, and that's the point I was exactly going to make. Look, he graduated from Notre Dame in 3 years. A third of his schooling at Notre Dame was paid for. That's a win-win for him, man. Like, go someplace where you're actually going to play.
Yeah.
You've got 2 years of eligibility left. Like,
he's not going to the league.
The sky's the limit, man. Like, go play and go get your master's degree while playing basketball. Like, there is no downside for Alex Wade at this point. You know what I mean? He's got his degree. Go play some ball, get your master's, have some fun with it, get off the bench, go play. I love it. It's win-win.
Yep. So we just heard from Marist Liufau talking about his draft potential. He's got a vested interest in Notre Dame women's basketball this weekend as well.
As far as the women's team going to go,
they're going to win it all. Yeah, the women's team are going to take it all.
For those who don't know, Marist Liufau, a big Sonia Citron fan.
Oh, really? A very specific fan, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
You didn't know that?
I did not know that.
Yes.
I did not know that.
Kind of been
are they
kind of been a thing for a couple years now.
Are they an item?
So. Yes, they are.
Ooh.
They are. He has been a regular for the last couple of years at the women's basketball.
Well, good for him. That's awesome. That's great. That's great. He didn't hesitate. Did you notice that? He did not hesitate when
they're going to win it all. So you guys in on Marist Liufau's bold prediction?
I have Notre Dame playing Iowa in the national championship. So they, that's me and him are thinking along the same lines. It's going to come down to the South Carolina game, to be honest with you. And I think Notre Dame is going to get them. South Carolina has looked vulnerable. I think they're going to overlook a team that they played game 1 in this season. And Notre Dame is completely different from that game. I know that's a long way down the road, but that is my kind of end of the road prediction for Notre Dame.
Okay.
I mean, I think they're going to go far. I think they're going to go Elite 8. I think they probably don't have quite enough firepower to get past South Carolina, but
even over optimistic Vince has them bowing out.
Hey, who knows? Maybe South Carolina gets upset before they get there.
Well, that's a
maybe
good
Notre
point.
Dame doesn't have to play South Carolina.
Hey,
who knows?
Listen, even though I picked that in the bracket challenge, right? I will still be rooting as hard as possible for Notre Dame. I mean, I would love to see them upset South Carolina. I think that would be awesome. I would throw away my bracket for that to happen. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah. Andre says when Notre Dame plays South Carolina to go to the Final Four, Big Three must score at least 65 points combined. The others must score 25 or more. No, I'm getting a little overboard. That's how I see it. A few games to go before they get there.
I don't think they need to put up 90 to win, though.
Yeah, Notre Dame can't win a shootout, I don't think.
I think they got to win that game like
they've got to make Carolina grind a little bit.
70-68 is a score I would see.
I think Carolina's, I would see South Carolina still scoring. Yeah, I think you're in the right ballpark, Jess. It's still going to be, they're still going to score around 70, like between 65 and 70-ish points. If we're talking if Notre Dame is to win that game, and Notre Dame's going to have to score, some points. But you're talking about one of the better combo offensive and defensive teams in the nation in Notre Dame. So, and during this win streak, it's been the defense that has really been a big part of what they're doing.
Ultimately was that what I was getting at is their defense would have to find a way to win against South Carolina. I don't know how that would happen, but that's not my job. That's Neil Ivy's job.
That's exactly right. The women are minus 29.5 for Saturday's game against Kent State. Do you like that number?
Man, too big. Don't like any numbers that big.
A little big for me,
especially in March Madness. I just stay away from that. That's my opinion. I know the women's game I'm more comfortable than the men's because the talent gap between like 1 and 16 is not much smaller, but it's definitely smaller in the men's game. Mm-hmm. But I feel like those spreads are never fun because it's like what you win by 28 and you're pissed because you didn't cover the 30-point spread. What are we talking about here? So way too big of a spread to comment on.
Interesting Kent State team as well. They were the number 3 seed at the MAC tournament, and ended up winning the whole thing. And they kind of rode the same formula as Notre Dame, defense and strong three-point shooting during their tournament. And that's kind of where Notre Dame shot like 53% on three-pointers and played really good defense during the ACC tournament as well. So they both kind of ridden the same formula, but the athletes are a little bit different at Notre Dame. You know, again, like the big thing is like Notre Dame's depth. And I think we're going to kind of see that even against a MAC team tomorrow. Like this Kent State team likes to run some players out there. And I think everyone who goes a little bit deeper into their bench is going to try that against Notre Dame to see what, kind of factor that has. But 29.5 is still a little bit big for me, I think.
It's a huge number, man. That kind of number scares me because they could be up by 30 for a majority of the game, but then look, Neal's going to take her foot off the gas. There's
Kent State hits a couple threes,
right? And look, here's the deal, man. There's no point. Like you don't get bonus points for winning by 30 plus. You know what I mean? And so she may, knowing this at the end of her bench, like, hey, you know what? Let's get some other people in there. Let's give our, let's save some legs.
Vince, there are only three other people who can come off the bench.
Okay,
so
you know what?
I understand what you're saying,
understand my
there's
point.
only so much rest to go around. Yeah,
fair enough. But I think that they're going to decelerate greatly,
right?
If they're up by that much with X amount of time left.
It's the kind of game. It's the kind of game where obviously if things go the way you want them to go, we should see more of Becky Obinma later in the game.
Oh yeah,
since Nat Marshall is starting out now, since there's not going to be any Kylie Watson, and that gives Sarah Cernugal, another former walk-on term scholarship player, a chance. She comes in and like Hidalgo sits or whoever they decide needs to sit at the end of the game. So, but again, there's only so many options that they have.
I've heard Neal has just been telling them in these off days to get the cardio up. That's all they've been practicing is cardio.
What else can you do? Yeah, I think it's good that it's almost 2 weeks in between games and they had spring break. So they got a lot of chance to rest their legs. They should be well rested and ready to go. And the fact now that you only have to play every other day in the NCAA tournament, TV timeouts are a little bit longer typically in the NCAA tournament, so that can help out a team with some depth issues as well. And again, I expect them to play as much zone as they can, but that'll also be dependent on how the other teams hit from behind the arc.
All I got to know is if this was a Vince D'Addario coach team, we would not be sucking air.
We will be well conditioned, gentlemen.
Best conditioned team in the area, baby. Don't forget that.
We could play 5 quarters.
Yo, baby. We may not have won games, but we weren't tired at the end.
TD asking if it'll be a sellout. They announced this morning that it is sold out.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
Well, my father-in-law, my daughter are going to the game, and I was told that he's picking her up 2 hours before the game's going to start. Doesn't want to deal with the headache of all the traffic and everything else. So
I got to decide when I'm getting over there.
They're going early.
It's pain in the butt.
I know, right?
By the way, they had like the open practice and stuff like that this morning, and a lot of local guys tweeting videos of Olivia Miles out there with the team. Here's a news flash. She's been practicing with the team for a while. It's not this ain't the first time she's been out there practicing with the team. And then like an hour before our show started, the women's basketball Twitter account tweeted a 1-minute video of Olivia talking and wishing her team well, wishing she could be out there with them. So I know there's been a lot of, hoping and wondering. It ain't happening.
Right.
She's not playing in the tournament. I probably shouldn't even say that because then we'll show up tomorrow and she's, it's not part of the plan. So we'll just leave it at that.
It's the best way to put it.
Yes. Fill in the blank. It's blank that according to a story by ESPN's Wright Thompson, Caitlyn Clark's family wanted her to commit to Notre Dame rather than her in-state school, Iowa, in 2019. And she actually did initially commit to Muffet-McGraw before changing her commitment to go to Iowa.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating. I didn't know that. You know what I mean? Like the inner workings of recruiting and all of those different things. And of course, I had no idea who Caitlyn Clark was before about a year or so ago. And so I had it wasn't on my radar that she was basically down to Iowa and Notre Dame and then did commit to Muffet McGraw and immediately regretted it and obviously switched over to Iowa, and the rest is history. But it was a fascinating read. I had no idea kind of how it went. And, you put yourself in the shoes of a 17-year-old trying to make this decision that's going to affect the rest of your life. And to be honest with you, Notre Dame was the easy choice.
Yeah.
And she made
She's
the hard choice.
From a Catholic family, actually. Went to a Catholic high school in Iowa. And like everyone was expecting that she was going to go to Notre Dame. And apparently that guy out there in Connecticut never recruited her, which is amazing. Yeah.
Iowa offered her a scholarship in 7th grade, Sean. Right. 7th grade. That's nuts.
I was going to go with bittersweet because now, as Notre Dame fans, you just kind of have the, like the what if, or kind of like the FOMO now that Caitlyn Clark is who she is. That, you fear that you missed out on something, and you start thinking, oh, well, Notre Dame could have been this or that or this dynamic, or, Caitlyn Clark would have paired well with this or that. And so it's bittersweet because now you take a look at, and that's the other part of it. Would she even become who she is today at Notre Dame, or did Iowa kind of propel her, the university, the platform, etc., the talent around her, propel her to kind of be who she is today? If she decided to go Notre Dame, would she even still be, the Caitlyn Clark that set the scoring record and, all the things that she's accomplishing? So it's bittersweet, but I'm glad that she decided to do what she's doing because she's, she is who she is. She's Caitlyn Clark because of her decision to go to Iowa.
This was in 2019, and this was before this current stint that I have doing the radio began. So this was about a year or so before that. So like it wasn't on my radar, like what was going on with Caitlyn Clark's recruitment, or any of this kind of stuff either. The first I remember sort of hearing about Caitlyn Clark, it was the year that it was the year that fans got back in Purcell, like the year after the first. I'm trying to remember what season that was. I think it was 2020, 2021 was the year that there were no fans in the arena. And like we were, as broadcasters in the media, we were sitting up, by the Notre Dame press box, and like doing, calling the games up there. Next year, and that was the year that Olivia Miles enrolled mid-season. The next year, we were back down at the court doing games. I think that there were maybe partial fans in the arena and stuff like that. But that was the year that Olivia, I believe, was second in the nation most of the year in assists. And every time I would look at the nation's assist leaders to see, if Olivia was still in second place, she was always behind this girl from Iowa named Caitlyn Clark. And that was sort of the first, realization of like who Caitlyn Clark was, the fact that she was leading the nation in assists, and she was also one of the nation's top scorers. But this was obviously also before last year when she took her team to the national championship game. But like you look back, here's from the story. Everyone in her school wanted her to choose Notre Dame. Every year, the top 2 or 3 students went to South Bend. Again, It was like Dowling Catholic. It's a Catholic school in Iowa. It was ingrained in the culture. When she went on a campus visit, she wanted to love it. In fact, she got frustrated with herself for not loving it. And then she ultimately had committed to McGraw, had to change it. The thing, like when you start rewriting history like this, let's say Caitlyn Clark had come. Like, is Olivia Miles still at Notre Dame?
Good point.
Is Hannah Hidalgo still at Notre Dame right now? There's
a domino effect.
Yeah, there's a domino effect on down the line. So you might get Caitlyn Clark, but what does the rest of it look like in terms of, who else is on the roster right now? So you don't know. I mean, she obviously turned into a great player, but again, the first 2 commits that Niele Ivey locked up this would have been at the end of like Clark would have committed in November and, actually signed in November of 2019 to go to Iowa. And by, that was right before COVID started. Coming out of the pandemic, that's when Muffet McGraw retired in the spring of 2020. Niele Ivey took over. Olivia Miles and Sonia Citron both commit at that point. So
good point.
Again, things could look a lot different.
Yeah, because the dominoes fall. Yeah, I mean, dominoes fall in different ways, and there's only so many scholarships to hand out, and the Notre Dame team would look different. Obviously, the roster would look probably a lot different, to be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's crazy. I didn't realize, again, I knew that Notre Dame had recruited her, but I didn't know that she was that close to actually coming here.
That she actually said yes. I mean, that she called Muffet and said yes. Like that part right there was just kind of wild to me,
I know.
And that was.
And then she's like, she had to call Muffet and tell her she was changing her mind. And she said, here's the quote: "I'm 17 years old and I'm sitting in my room and I'm sweating my bleep off. I'm about to call her. She is an intimidating individual."
I know.
She was really understanding. She kind of knew she was great. And then I called Coach Bluter, in quote, the Iowa coach. But that's like, yes, the intimidating individual is right. But Muffet apparently she went out to Iowa quite a bit during this process, during the recruiting process to try to get Caitlyn Clark to come here.
Yeah, that's kind of wild. And the other thing that I also thought was wild was obviously her going to Iowa was a game changer for them.
Yeah,
and they're buying bottles of champagne and they're doing all kinds. I mean, they are celebrating this thing. I mean, that was a coup for Iowa. I mean, they beat Notre Dame for a recruit from a kid who went to a Catholic school, and all of the things that you just mentioned.
Right,
that's a massive recruiting win for
yeah,
them, and
it's
obviously paid off.
The fact that Notre Dame was just a year and a half removed from a national championship,
right,
at that point, and she still chose Iowa.
Yeah. I mean I give her a lot of credit for doing what she ended up wanting to do. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because maybe she wouldn't have been happy at Notre Dame. Because she talked about going on her visit. She wanted to love it. And she just didn't. Right. And if you don't love Notre Dame, you're not going to enjoy yourself here.
Yeah. It sounds like Gino didn't recruit her, again, just based on, what's in that article, because it sounds like he wasn't really sold on how coachable she was going to be. That kind of thing. So
interesting.
I don't know. Said he called her AU coaches, but never her high school coach to talk about her.
Right.
Which I thought was whatever.
Well,
all right.
Yeah.
So ESPN, of course, has signed their top sideline reporter, Holly Rowe, to be the dedicated Caitlyn Clark reporter during the first two rounds of the women's tournament this weekend. They also sent the Pat McAfee show to Iowa City today to broadcast their show. Which of those moves do you like better?
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know. Are you raising your hand? Or are you
I like the McAfee move. I watched part of it today.
Uno passing it.
I watched part of it today just to see what it was about. Like when you talk about promoting the women's game and you've got the biggest star in women's college basketball right now, and you've got ESPN, and whether you watch McAfee or not, but it was basically just like a game day setup. There was McAfee and his guys out there. They had this, like the stage and the desk, and they had the Iowa cheerleaders and the students behind them and the whole thing. And you talk about being able to do that for the women's basketball tournament. I think that's huge. I think it was great promotion for the whole thing.
I agree with you completely. That was the way I was going to go as well. I think the McAfee show is the tipping point for me. I mean, they sent the McAfee show. Obviously, the McAfee show is kind of like dovetailed off of game day because he's on game day, so you keep him in the same place. But he was always going to the best games in college football. And now he's in theory going to the best spot for women's basketball, not the men's basketball, women's basketball. I find that, number one, fascinating that they would put that kind of, well, I guess obviously the men's is on CBS and that's a whole different entity. And I get all that. And so they're trying to publicize their entity, which is ESPN. And that's where the women's, tournament is, but they're still devoting an awful lot of resources to the women's bracket, which I think is awesome. Even if it is just Iowa, you can't be everywhere. That's huge. That's massive. Holly Rowe has done women's sports before.
Right.
Pat McAfee show has not. So I think that's the bigger deal.
Did you answer, Jess, or do you want to, are you going to abstain? Or?
And I'll complete the trifecta. I think Pat McAfee is the better move. And the reason why I say it is pretty short and simple, in my opinion. I think rather than bringing exposure to one player in the game, you're bringing exposure to more of the game itself in women's basketball. And so that's what I'm more on, a fan of, is Caitlyn Clark is going to get her praise like she has all season. And so if you can do more to bring attention to the women's game as a whole rather than just one player, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I had this question as part of the rundown. Then we had so many topics. I pushed it out, but USMA 87, Deuce Knight visited Notre Dame this weekend, and USMA 87 was asking about the welcome that Mike Denbrock had. They had the, I think, was it you, Jess, that sent it to me, or was it you, Vince? The picture of there's like a TV monitor. It looked like in, like either the Mike Denbrock's office or like the meeting room or whatever. And it had picture of Deuce Knight in the middle, Heisman Trophy in front of him, Desmond Ridder, picture of him on one side, Jaden Daniel on the other side, and it said, what did it say? You're next. Thank you. Thank you, USMA. You're next. What'd you guys think of that?
I thought it was awesome. And if you're going to, if you're going to come out full guns blazing to get a guy to come here and you're putting on your best show of why they should come here, that's what you're pulling out. Two guys that are in the league. Well, Jaden Daniels is on his way to the league. Desmond Ridder, obviously in the league, just got traded to the Arizona Cardinals. But, Jaden Daniels won the most coveted trophy in college football. He won the Heisman. He's going to be a first-round draft pick. And it's like Mike Denbrock's resume to Deuce Knight of why you should trust me. And it was, I think it's spot on. You go with it's short, it's simple. You got two guys again that are in the league, and you're next. If you follow me, listen, I did this with two different schools. It doesn't matter where I'm at or who I got with me. If you're with me, we're gonna make this happen. So I loved it.
I mean, look, it's obviously what they did in college. You got one Heisman Trophy winner. You got another guy who led his Group of 5 team to the playoff, right? I mean, what more can you say? It's like, these are the last two quarterbacks that I coached. You're next. You know what I mean? It's all right there. And obviously there's a few Notre Dame quarterbacks probably in between. But at the same time, they don't have the success right now that those other two guys did. So, I love when they have the guys, posing with the Heisman Trophy or, whatever. I mean, you're trying to paint a picture of what things are going to be like if you come here.
It's a bit of a show, but that's how it's supposed to be.
He's committed. He hasn't, it's not signing day yet. You're still reaffirming and Mike Denbrock is still kind of building that relationship, I would imagine. I don't know to what extent he was, involved in recruiting him when he was down at LSU still, but that's a big part of it. And just kind of that not so subtle reminder, like you said, of the last two guys that he's coached. And this is why we still want you here. This is why we love you and why we want you here at Notre Dame, so you can be the next guy in line. What team do you guys most enjoy seeing get upset in the NCAA tournament? USMA 87 reminded me, I forgot to mention this one earlier. Oakland beating Kentucky last night. They had the guy with like the Eddie Munster hairline, out there, that Colt, whatever his name was, shooting
all the threes.
Yeah, knocking him down. What team do you guys like seeing get upset like in the tournament?
This is easy.
It's easy for me too.
All right, what do you got?
Well, go ahead, answer the question.
I got Purdue and Kentucky and Duke.
Well, one team.
Purdue.
Well, mine's IU. So
Jack
there you go.
Golke. That's his name, Jack Golke.
Mine's IU.
Yours is IU. Really?
I love it when IU loses.
I didn't realize you had that much. I mean, IU's not even in the tournament most of the time anymore.
Well, not anymore, but I love it when they lose, man. Oh, I love it. Love it.
Mine is definitely, like Al says, it starts with Duke. Kentucky would be number 2. So that was a good night last night. Purdue used to be fairly high on my list for whatever reason. I do like Matt Painter.
Well, but Gene Katie was easy to not like.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's why that's why it used to be like this Painter era is a lot different. You're probably right with IU, because I've never since moving to Indiana, because when I came to Indiana was when I think it was like the second year that Mike Davis got him, into the Final Four and all that stuff. It was just noxious.
Yes.
So
yes.
But again, they've had so little success since then that they haven't bothered me really. So.
It's kind of been nice. There was a while there when I was in high school and early college that, you're filling out your bracket, like IU losing in the first round, check. Like it was all like that was, a 12 beating a 5 and IU losing in the first round. Like that was always something that I went after, and it happened more often than not. And my hatred for IU started long time ago, but there are some very, very annoying IU fans out there.
And that's what soured me on them after I moved here, was just how annoying that I didn't realize how, because again, like before moving here, it never really gave it much of a second thought, but it's like, man, you guys are just seriously.
And I think that's why I hate the color red.
But
like,
look,
all of it, man.
There's people like that you can probably say that about with every.
Of course, 100%. But yeah.
All right, last question of the night, unless we get anything else through the chat. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Jim Harbaugh had a garage sale in Ann Arbor before leaving to move to Los Angeles.
It's comical. Vince started laughing. It's very comical. It's very on brand. And it's just like, for what, dude? Like, just give it away. Like, just have a sign that says free. Why are we having a garage sale?
Because he got it for free, by the way. If it's
right.
like
are there like,
I mean, look at Mozzie Smith. His whole freaking storage locker or whatever got vacated because he didn't care about it. It's all just free junk that they collected over the years. And so the fact that he's out there actually trying to have a garage sale and sell this stuff off and make a little bit extra money, it's ridiculous. I hope he donated that money to charity or something.
There was, and I can't remember which coach it is, so I don't want to throw anybody under the bus.
I think you're thinking what I'm thinking.
Okay, there was a Notre Dame coach that when he was leaving.
Oh.
No. It was when they switched over from Adidas to Under Armour. That's what it was. He put all of his Adidas stuff, and I think he lived in my neighborhood at the time. All of his Adidas stuff was on the driveway, and he was trying to sell it to people. Like, you got all that stuff for free, dog. Like,
I think I know who you're talking about. Was he actually a coach or like one of the administrative staff?
It might have been a guy who really likes blenders.
Yes.
It might have been that guy.
He might live in Texas now, if I'm thinking the same guy you're thinking about.
I can't remember, but I just remember thinking to myself, dude, you got all that stuff for free. Why are you selling it to people, like to the schmucks that live in the neighborhood? You know what I mean?
People are going to buy it because it's they're going to eat
That's
it.
Exactly. But like, what's Jim Harbaugh going to do with a warehouse full of like Michigan winter coats in Los Angeles?
100%.
Yeah, but that's why you just post a sign that says free.
Just take it.
Take what you need.
That's true too. Maybe if he's going to give it to charity, I haven't heard like what he's doing with the cash or anything, or how much he's selling.
It is so Jim Harbaugh, though, isn't it?
Well,
like that is
what I was going to say
Harbaugh.
when you started to say there was a coach, Bud Grant, the former, like a long time ago, Minnesota Vikings head coach, apparently, like he used to have. This was after he was retired, but he would have the Bud Grant garage sale every year, and he would sell all kinds of cool stuff. Apparently, Minnesota Vikings and otherwise. So like he was like, I think NFL Films did a piece on it.
That's hilarious.
One time, so that's who I thought of when I heard of this, like Harbaugh's doing a garage sale.
I thought it was so funny when I saw that.
Who's got it better than us?
Yeah.
People at the garage sale. All right.
That's right. Getting some gear for low prices.
That's right. That's right. Like he's a little bit taller than me, so I don't know if anything that he,
I mean, the khakis might not fit,
anyways.
Yeah,
yeah, that's right. Only Jim Harbaugh, though.
Yep.
Because like when I was at Pro Day yesterday, and I'm seeing these two head coaches there, McCarthy and Quinn, I'm thinking Harbaugh's doing a garage sale. He's only like 2.5, 3 hours away. He could be here at Notre Dame's Pro Day, looking at these guys with two other head coaches and all these executives, but he's doing a garage sale instead.
It's got, hey,
priorities.
Yep.
Priorities.
Exactly. I think he had maybe his offensive line coach or defensive line coach was there. If I remember specifically.
Oh, Chargers person
in Charger stuff.
Did send some sort of a representative.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Your boy Cliff Kingsbury was there though.
I saw him talking to Hartman apparently.
Yeah. Yep, that was
interesting. What? He would be good in Kingsbury's system. I'll just say it.
That's we talked a lot about that yesterday.
Okay.
And I think that not a lot, but I'm just saying that like Hartman, that career backup path and playing in that Kingsbury system,
Yeah.
I could see stranger things happening, potentially.
Absolutely.
It's not like the Commanders are going to go out and draft him in the 3rd round or something like that, but late round pick hanging around, I could easily see him ending up out there. All right, well, I guess that's going to do it for tonight. We've got, of course, Notre Dame women's basketball this weekend, assuming a win tomorrow against Kent State, which, I mean, to be honest, I think most people are assuming a win tomorrow against Kent State.
They are a 29.5-point favorite.
Right. It's very doubtful that I will be here Monday because a win tomorrow for the women means another game on Monday. So I will leave it to you guys.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Yes.
So,
wow. And I didn't even realize Louisville women had an 18-point lead that they blew before they ended up losing.
Wow.
Thanks for that, D-Rock. That's even funnier. All right. Well, have a great weekend. Enjoy the basketball, March Madness on both sides, men's and women's. And we will talk to you next week on IB Nation Sports Talk.